Question. I'm no philanthropist. My sufferings are just recently caused by the behavior of my fellow men. My life experience does not support the spiritual claim man is goodness and benevolence in his essence. Some are, others may be, many think they are, and most don't care, or their inner attitude is indifferent. That is even more obvious on the collective level in history, and apparently where we humans, either knowingly, ignorant hopelessly, or with shut-off senses ruin our environment. I can sense Mother Earth aching. Right now, as well as past years, nature needs water. It affects me as I live close to nature. More than once, I watch myself thinking total reset is needed to cure the planet from the cancer called mankind. That is far from the wishful, romantic thinking man is crown of all creation, or eventually fully realized, the highest possible experience that the universe can have of itself. How can I change my attitude? Or can I change my attitude? Well, you can hear that it's a very relevant way of looking at it, because it brings about that disparity between what spiritual teachings bring about, meant to exemplify, and then the reality we live in. First, I'd like to say something to you for your consideration, for your future contemplation, is that this may still sound as abstract, but please bear in mind that every experience we have is colored by consciousness we embody. Everything that we experience is not experienced as it is. There's no such thing as objectively experiencing something, nor there is any objective experience to begin with. Every experience is subjective. This is the first where I would like to open up the inquiry for you. Therefore, in different states of consciousness, in different levels of consciousness, experiences and perception differs. It's different. It cannot be otherwise. Acutely experiencing, witnessing the pain of others, the injustice, all this malice, all this what maybe in this case cannot be spoken subjectively. It's an objective reality. We all hear it, see it. It's all over the place. The signs of this or that. But it doesn't mean that that in itself is colored by the level of consciousness, which is exemplified by the level of collective consciousness as well, as it imposes that way of seeing. What we are not accustomed in certain level of consciousness is to meet certain paradoxes and having great difficulty in reconciling polarities. So therefore, very quickly our minds are pulled in the direction where we think we have the right perspective, and we somehow, without much hesitation, make that point of reference as the point of reference, where even that what may be exemplified by perennial teachings could easily be dismissed as romantic, utopian, inapplicable or tinted with the rosy glasses. You see? Yes, I have had this perspective as well, that the only thing Earth needs is to get rid of the humankind, because mankind is like a cancer. And everything will go back to normal. First of all, this is a naive perspective in itself, which is limited to this very perspective exemplified by human condition, where that human condition projects itself on entire creation. Entire creation. So, therefore, of course, this projection is being reflected back with this confirmation that things are as I perceive them. Therefore, they must be as they are, because that's the way I perceive them. Whereas the underlying quality, in this case, let's say, of vibrations of Earth, if you speak about that geocentric perspective, which I love, by the way, very much. Maybe I don't mean exactly the same thing when I speak about the geocentric perspective. And we need to go and find out. But let's say in this geocentric perspective, separating consciousness of a man, a human being, from consciousness of a planet is inconsistent with the evolution of the planet Earth itself. Unless we are some kind of freak of cosmic interaction where we've been injected into this planet from some extraterrestrial realm, and there are also perspectives like this. There are conspiracy theorists who go in great length of telling us that apparently we are a result of some kind of form of cohabitation. The real humans died long time ago, or very few of us left here. No. No. With every break, with every opening on a personal level, you will see vistas upon vistas of profound coherence in a world that is already. Just because we live at the phase of transition, where certain ways of life dies because it outlived itself, it doesn't mean that there is a calamity. I would say something as utopian as all these human efforts to save the planet are misunderstandings of the working of consciousness itself. It's like that individual, that person, tries to be a better person. And now that better person wants to save the planet. You see? This is where walking spiritual path, walking the talk, requires profound degree of clarity. And that can only come from continuous investigation into the state of affairs. And that would not be enough, because you would need to have direct first-hand experiences which will confirm you, which will reconfirm you, reassure you that what is only because is amount of consciousness available to perceive it for what it is. When the full gamut or fuller gamut is available, a different picture appears altogether. A different perception, qualitatively different perception, is available. And in that qualitatively different perception, there is no shortage of harmony which constantly works itself out at every instant. So those who are running and going crazy and nutty and what have you, like, houses on fire, only add to the agitation that is already aplenty. So in other words, no point to study yoga, no point to do yogic practices, if one does not have that shraddha, that understanding. It's no point to walk spiritual path properly if it's not accompanied by proper understanding, because that shraddha has to be rooted in that. And that shraddha is here in true Advaitic non-dual sense, is that consciousness all there is. And of course, in the field of pure potentialities, it's just happened that this is what consciousness exercised itself to itself. But a lot more and different modalities are there at the click of a finger. And for consciousness, it's nothing other than way of its own play. This is not a cop-out situation of taking away one's personal responsibility. Contrary to that, otherwise we wouldn't have even came up with the course entitled Yoga of Integrity in the first place if we have raked it or brushed it with the same brush. That there is no personal responsibility because there is no personal will. There is only one will, and that will is divine. Well, that is a simplified affair. Will is different in different states of consciousness, just as experience is different in different states of consciousness. So therefore, this is where you need to draw the required strength, the inner strength, so as to bring about the desired changes. There are many people who have millions of followers out there, who are being adopted into kind of father-like figures. Jordan Peterson is one of them. He is more known than some of the most popular people out there, celebrities or spiritual teachers. And yet, one only wonders, where is the walk, the talk is being walked? And it will come soon as a rude awakening for many people to see how much inconsistency there is in that paternal figure, which speaks to a lot of very, very hot, cutting-edge topics. But when it comes to the personal life, it all went down to resorting to matrix remedies, pill, matrix remedies, being replugged back into the matrix. So nothing consciousness-based being offered or lived. How true can that be? So there is a similarity between the case of Mahatma Gandhi and the case of the aforementioned gentleman. Because they do not apply the rule of a thumb exemplified by Swabhava. First, you live the inborn duty towards your inner happiness. When that is achieved, then, and only then, one can tend to the happiness of other people. That happiness has to be independent of experience. Can you hear how profound the level of happiness we're talking about here? It's independent on conditions and levels of experience. But, yes, I agree with you. To me, I'm not worried about the pollution in the planet and all the rest. It's no problem for consciousness of a planet Earth to restore harmony in a blink of an eye, completely. Ecology will restore itself, forget about our involvement and thinking about it and this and that, straining the muscle of the head. But there is a lot of mental pollution. Centuries-old mental pollution stands on the way more preventing us than anything, than any pollution of radioactive or plastic in its hard matter, whatever you may lament as heating or cooling or shrinking or... And that mental pollution creates hypocrisy. Hypocrisy, when the greatest minds of our time go and make tremendous tremendous compromises. Albert Einstein is a genius and is known rightly so for being one. And yet, he knew very well when he received that invitation to work on the project that this is not at all a project to use nuclear power for peaceful means. He knew that he invited to work on atomic bomb that will be used by this administration, that will be tried on people, because it's the wartime and it's the perfect opportunity in disguise to use it. You see? That's why I said in the previous part, ignorant folk is not at all dangerous. Ignorant folk is not at all even responsible. It is that semi-enlightened, semi-spiritual that poses the most problem here. You see? That semi-education. When Nazis were burning Jews and Gypsies in the ovens in an industrially created way, they didn't do it as a kind of haphazard, kind of like unconscious act. Suddenly we're going to build Majdanek or Auschwitz. I just suddenly would build. No. It's a continuous, consciously made acts, all based on certain ideological perspective. You see? So from these big examples to small examples as so-called spiritually minded being creates platform to educate and to interview spiritual teachers, solicits an interview from a lesser-known spiritual teacher who doesn't give a damn about being out in the public, only to ruin his career utterly and entirely. That was the case of Anadi. I bear witness to that. I carry responsibility for that because the aforementioned man, whose name I do not want to speak, asked me to help him, to track the man down, to assist in interviewing him because he was in India, solicit that interview from the man, only to ruin his career 2 years after because of one single letter from a begrudged student. Anadi do not have a website, do not have YouTube channel, and cannot teach because his name is being ruined with the ground. These are examples of semi-enlightened folk, you see? Examples of those who did not bring yoga of integrity at some point to their attention, skimmed the surface. So therefore, when you bring these questions, such profound, powerful questions, is mankind a cancer or the apex of creation? My job to tell you that it is my direct, first-hand experience that human form is divine in every attribute. Every human faculty is divine in every attribute, and every human aspect of character is divine, absolutely divine. That is worthy of contemplation and bringing to the focal point of awareness. Whatever happens today on the planet Earth and the proliferation of lies and decadence of values does not undermine that fact for an iota, as long as there are enough people who live, breathe, vibrate that level of consciousness. Who is to say that we would have already ceased to be as life on this planet if it was not maintained by this profound cosmic balance of those who give themselves to the work which will not be written in the New York Times or the whatever other periodics out there, you know. All these feminine powers rising, all these strikes, demonstrations, it's only an expression of what is happening deep within the recesses of human consciousness. Some people will become all these tantric poetess, tantric sibyls, you know, draw all the attention in the social media, whereas the real work requires something else, completely something else. And that's what yoga of integrity is, something else altogether, something that we're so eager to sort of bypass, you know, and it's easy to bypass.